darkness was absolute. March 14th, 1943. Early morning hours stretched endlessly across the North Atlantic. The coordinates read 52 degrees north, 28 degrees west. Not a single light pierced the blackness for 100 miles in any direction. Deep inside HMS Starling, the radar operator stared at his screen. His eyes had grown accustomed to the green glow. The sweeping line painted the same empty picture again and again. Water. Nothing but water. 12-foot swells rolled beneath them in rhythmic patterns. The ship rose and fell with mechanical precision. Then something appeared that shouldn't exist. A tiny blip. So small it barely registered. A metal object cutting through massive waves. The contact measured barely 3 feet across. It moved with purpose through the churning sea. The Type 291 radar had just accomplished something German commanders believed impossible. It had spotted a submerged submarine's periscope breaking the surface. This moment changed everything. The technology didn't just represent progress. It marked the instant when Hunter became hunted. The Atlantic Ocean transformed from German territory into a graveyard for those who had ruled it. The U-boat weapon that nearly starved Britain carried within itself a fatal weakness. German engineers never imagined radar could exploit this vulnerability. The crisis destroying the U-boat fleet existed in the original blueprints. Every Type 7 submarine leaving ports at Lorient, Saint-Nazaire, or La Rochelle contained this fatal contradiction. The design guaranteed eventual destruction of every crew aboard. Commander Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock understood the reality perfectly. His 7th patrol aboard U-96 ended in January 1943. His patrol report documented the tactical nightmare with brutal honesty. Underwater operations left them completely blind. Sound detection became impossible beneath the surface. The submarine existed in helpless isolation when submerged. Battery power provided only 4 hours at patrol speed. Crawling at 2 knots extended this to perhaps 16 hours. Then, the inevitable moment arrived. Surface operations became mandatory. Every single time. No exceptions existed. The Type 7C U-boat design created this vulnerability through engineering necessity. These workhorses of the Kriegsmarine's Atlantic campaign required 2 completely separate propulsion systems. Submerged operations depended entirely on electric motors. Massive lead-acid battery banks provided the only power source. These batteries weighed 42 tons each. They sat directly beneath crew compartments. Every system drew power from the same limited reservoir. Propulsion demanded electricity. Life support systems consumed power continuously. Pumps required constant electrical supply. Navigation instruments drained the batteries steadily. All competed for the same finite energy source. Kriegsmarine engineering manuals documented the mathematics of this limitation with painful precision. Cruising speed of 4 knots underwater exhausted batteries within 4 hours maximum. Economical speed of 2 knots stretched battery life to roughly 16 hours. But recharging demanded surface running with diesel engines roaring to life. These engines required air to function. They created tremendous noise that carried for miles. Visible exhaust betrayed their position to enemy aircraft. The recharging process typically consumed 4 to 6 hours of dangerous surface exposure. During these hours, U-boats faced attack from aircraft, surface vessels, and detection methods their commanders couldn't yet comprehend. Korvettenkapitän Peter Kramer commanded U-333 through these nightly ordeals. His February 1943 log entries captured the desperate routine. Surface operations began at 2100 hours each night. Complete darkness provided their only hope for survival. Diesel engines coughed to life with sounds that traveled incredible distances across calm seas. 6 hours of exposure followed. 6 hours of gambling that British aircraft hunted elsewhere. 6 hours of hoping destroyers pursued other submarines. 6 hours of trusting that darkness provided invisible protection. This protection was already gone, though German commanders didn't yet understand why. German naval intelligence, the B-Dienst, had identified British radar as a serious threat since 1941. But their understanding remained dangerously incomplete. They knew about metric wavelength systems detecting surfaced U-boats at 20-mile ranges. What they couldn't imagine was British development of centimetric radar capable of detecting periscope-sized objects. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz and his B-Dienst staff at headquarters lacked this crucial knowledge. British scientists had achieved what seemed impossible. The February 1943 operations reports documented an increasingly alarming pattern. U-boat losses were accelerating at unprecedented rates. January losses totaled 6 boats. February losses jumped to 19 submarines. Survivor reports mentioned radar-equipped aircraft arriving with impossible precision. These attacks occurred during night surface charging operations. The pattern remained hidden from German analysis. The revolution happening in British radar laboratories stayed completely secret. Escort vessels operating in the mid-Atlantic Gap employed technology that transformed underwater warfare. This 1,000-mile stretch beyond land-based aircraft range had provided U-boat sanctuary for 3 years. That sanctuary was ending. Desperation in a Birmingham University laboratory during February 1940 created the technology that would break U-boat dominance. The cavity magnetron developed by John Randall and Harry Boot generated microwave radiation at 10-centimeter wavelengths. This frequency revolutionized detection capabilities beyond previous imagination. Type 291 radar systems equipped escort vessels throughout Western Approach's command by March 1943. Admiralty technical manuals documented specifications that seemed impossible to conventional thinking. Operating at 3,000 Hz with 10-centimeter wavelengths, the Type 291 could detect submarine periscopes at ranges exceeding 2 miles in calm conditions. Lieutenant Commander Geoffrey Walken commanded HMS Vindex when the first confirmed periscope detection occurred. His patrol log from February 28, 1943, recorded the breakthrough moment. Radar contact appeared at 0312 hours, bearing 247 degrees, range 3,400 yards. The contact appeared and disappeared with wave motion. Investigation proceeded immediately. Visual confirmation came at 1,200 yards. Night binoculars revealed the periscope clearly. The U-boat crash dived upon their approach. Depth charge attack pattern Delta 7 followed the submarine down into the depths. Centimetric radar physics made these detections possible where previous systems failed completely. Metric wavelength radar operating around 200 MHz could detect large metal objects but lacked resolution for small targets. Periscopes and snorkel masts remained invisible to older systems. The 10-centimeter wavelength of Type 291 created beams narrow enough to resolve objects measured in feet rather than hundreds of feet. This precision transformed submarine detection from impossible to routine. Technical testing at the Admiralty's Anti-Submarine Warfare Development Establishment at Fairley demonstrated revolutionary capabilities under controlled conditions. Type 7C periscopes extended to normal observation height of approximately 3 feet above surface achieved reliable detection at ranges up to 4,000 yards in Sea State 2 conditions. Even rougher seas provided consistent detection ranges between 1,500 and 2,500 yards. These implications for U-boat operations were absolutely catastrophic. German naval intelligence remained completely unaware of the specific threat level. Commander Herbert Werner survived his patrol aboard U-230 in March 1943. His later descriptions revealed the new terrifying reality. Standard procedures seemed meaningless. Listening periods detected nothing. Periscope sweeps showed clear horizons in all directions. Surfacing occurred only after confirming no visible threats. Yet, British destroyers materialized from nowhere. They charged toward submarine positions before surface routines could be completed. The attacks seemed like supernatural intervention. Type 291 tactical employment had been refined through accumulated combat experience. Western approaches, command operational reports documented systematic improvements. Escort commanders developed specific search patterns for nighttime operations. They understood U-boat necessity to surface for battery charging. Typical U-boats surfaced between 2100 and 500 hours. Charging operations consumed 4 to 6 hours while maintaining lookouts and listening for threats. British escort groups adapted their patrol patterns to exploit this vulnerability. Random searching gave way to systematic coverage. Areas with reported U-boat activity received concentrated attention. Submarines that submerged during daylight attacks would eventually surface to recharge. Type 291 gave escorts the ability to detect boats during their most vulnerable moments. The instant periscopes broke surface for final security checks before surfacing. March 1943 earned the designation Black March in Kriegsmarine histories, the month when Atlantic war mathematics shifted permanently against U-boat forces. Type 291 radar convergence with improved tactics and increased escort strength created killing fields that Donitz commanders never imagined possible. The pattern revealed itself through accumulated patrol reports and loss assessments compiled at BDU headquarters. 7 U-boats failed to report scheduled radio checks during the first week of March. By mid-month, this number had climbed to 15 submarines. By month's end, German Naval Command counted 28 U-boats lost. This represented an unsustainable loss rate of nearly 15% of operational boats. Fregattenkapitän Rolf Mützelberg served as operations officer at BDU. His classified report, dated March 24, 1943, documented the analysis with growing alarm. The pattern remained consistent across all loss reports from survivors. British escorts located submarines during night surface charging operations with impossible precision. Boats following proper security procedures faced attack before completing surfacing evolutions. Listening periods provided no warning. Periscope reconnaissance revealed no threats. Mathematical surface routines offered no protection. The British had developed detection capabilities that completely negated tactical advantage of darkness. Specific incidents documented in survivor testimonies painted an increasingly clear picture of systematic destruction. U-664, under Oberleutnant Adolf Greif, surfaced at 1:45 hours on March 9th, following standard procedures exactly. Within 8 minutes, while still conducting post-surface security sweeps, HMS Harvester appeared from bearing 320 degrees at maximum speed. The U-boat attempted crash dive, but sustained depth charge damage, forcing emergency surface. All hands were lost in the subsequent engagement. U-432, under Kapitän Lieutenant Hermann Eckhart, attempted night surface charging on March 11th. The boat completed thorough periscope sweeps showing no contacts within visible range. Upon surfacing at 2:23 hours, lookouts reported a destroyer at approximately 3,000 yards closing at high speed. The crash dive came too late. Depth charges caught U-432 still passing through 70 meters depth. No survivors remained to tell the story. The tactical dilemma facing U-boat commanders became impossible to resolve through any means. Surface operations to charge batteries were not optional. Dead batteries left boats completely helpless. But surfacing had become nearly suicidal in areas where British escort groups operated. Even careful, methodical approaches that succeeded for 3 years now offered no protection whatsoever. Korvettenkapitän Siegfried von Forstner commanded U-402 through this nightmare. His radio report on March 17th revealed the psychological impact devastating crews. Attempted surface charging at 02:30 hours. Completed periscope reconnaissance showing clear horizons all sectors. Raised radar detection antenna with no emissions detected. Surfaced and immediately came under attack by destroyer that could not possibly have been within visual range during periscope sweep. Forced to crash dive with batteries at 37% capacity. The British were detecting submarines through means that could not be identified or countered by any known methods. German technical intelligence investigated reports of new British radar capabilities, but their understanding remained dangerously incomplete. They knew metric wavelength radar could detect surfaced U-boats. They had developed the METOX radar warning receiver to alert boats of radar emissions. But METOX operated at frequencies incapable of detecting centimetric wavelengths. U-boats remained essentially deaf to the very emissions hunting them with deadly precision. Type 291 radar reached full tactical potential through development of specialized hunter-killer groups. These transformed convoy escort doctrine completely. Western approaches, command refined operational procedures maximizing radar capabilities while compensating for system limitations by late March 1943. Captain Frederick John Walker commanded the 2nd Escort Group aboard HMS Starling. His tactical innovations became standard doctrine throughout the fleet. Operational reports from March and April 1943 documented systematic approaches turning Type 291 detections into confirmed submarine kills. Walker's methods combined radar detection with immediate aggressive action. This prevented U-boats from completing surface charging cycles. Submarines were forced to submerge with inadequate battery reserves, creating cascading tactical disasters. Walker's tactical procedures were documented in Western Approaches Command Tactical Memorandum 14. Distribution to all escort groups occurred in April 1943. The protocol specified precise sequential steps for maximum effectiveness. Maintain continuous Type 291 radar sweeps during darkness hours when U-boats typically surfaced. Investigate all contacts regardless of size with immediate course changes toward bearing. Approach at maximum practical speed to minimize U-boat reaction time. Illuminate targets with searchlights only when within definite attack range. Execute coordinated depth charge attacks if U-boats crash-dived before surface engagement became possible. Walker's 2nd Escort Group demonstrated devastating effectiveness during operations from March 30th to April 6, 1943. Operating independently of convoy escort duties, the group patrolled areas where U-boat activity had been reported. They hunted submarines rather than defended merchantmen. The patrol log documented 6 Type 291 radar contacts during night operations. 4 resulted in confirmed U-boat kills. U-592 on April 1st, U-635 on April 5th, U-530, and U-384 on April 6th in engagement where both boats were caught surfaced within miles of each other. The engagement with U-635 illustrated typical tactical sequences perfectly. At 02:47 hours on April 5th, HMS Woodpecker's Type 291 operator reported contact bearing 118 degrees at 3,200 yards. The contact's intermittent nature and small radar cross-section indicated periscope or partially surfaced boat. Walker ordered immediate course change. Starling and Woodpecker turned toward the contact at 28 knots. At 02:51 hours Lookouts on Starling reported surfaced U-boat at approximately 1,400 yards. This confirmed the radar contact visually. The U-boat's conning tower watch spotted approaching escorts simultaneously. The boat began its crash dive desperately. Walker's vessels were already positioned for attack runs. At 02:53 hours, as U-635 passed through 40 meters depth still diving, the first depth charge pattern detonated around the boat's projected position. Korvettenkapitän Heinz Eckermann, commanding U-635, had no opportunity to execute evasive maneuvers. The boat was caught in vulnerable transition between surface and deep running. Ballast tanks were still flooding. The hull had not yet reached pressure depth. Depth charge patterns ruptured fuel tanks and damaged the pressure hull severely. U-635 lost depth control and surfaced involuntarily at 02:56 hours. Surface gunfire from both escorts destroyed the crippled submarine within minutes. 12 survivors remained from a crew of 48. Commander Donald McIntyre commanded the 5th Escort Group. His patrol reports from April 1943 documented similar tactical successes repeatedly. Type 291 provided warning of U-boat surface activity at ranges sufficient to close an attack before enemies completed charging operations. U-boats that previously operated with relative security during night hours now faced detection and attack throughout their surface periods. This fundamental shift in tactical advantage rendered night surface operations extremely hazardous for enemy submarines. Concentration of hunter-killer groups in the mid-Atlantic Gap created operational environments negating German tactical doctrine completely. This area beyond land-based air cover had provided U-boats with greatest operational freedom. U-boats could no longer rely on darkness for protection during surface charging that battery-powered propulsion made unavoidable. British Admiralty statistics from April 1943 demonstrated the impact with mathematical precision. Hunter-killer groups equipped with Type 291 radar achieved U-boat kill rates 3 times higher than conventional convoy escorts. The groups accounted for 32% of U-boat losses during April, while representing only 11% of escort vessels at sea. Type 291 radar provided tactical means to detect and attack U-boats during surface operations, but strategic employment of this technology depended on intelligence systems directing hunter-killer groups to areas where U-boats operated. Combination of signals intelligence, operational analysis, and radar technology created comprehensive detection systems German Naval Command could not effectively counter. The Government Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park achieved varying degrees of success reading German naval Enigma communications throughout 1942 and early 1943. While intelligence wasn't always timely enough for tactical rerouting of convoys, it provided Western Approaches Command with sufficient information to position hunter-killer groups in areas where U-boat activity was anticipated. Commander Roger Wynne headed the Admiralty's Submarine Tracking Room. He coordinated integration of signals intelligence with operational deployment of radar-equipped escorts. Daily assessments documented in Admiralty records combined decoded German communications, direction-finding intercepts, sighting reports, and attack data to create comprehensive pictures of U-boat dispositions. The March 15th assessment from Wynne's section demonstrated this analytical approach perfectly. Decrypts of BDU transmissions indicated Wolfpack Raubgraf positioning for convoy intercept in grid square BE-53. Recommendation for deployment of 2nd Escort Group to area with instructions to conduct Type 291 radar sweeps during hours 2100 to 500 when U-boats would surface for battery charging. High probability of multiple contacts existed if escorts reached area before convoy arrival. This intelligence-driven deployment proved devastatingly effective in practice. Walker's 2nd Escort Group reached the designated area on March 17th. 36 hours before the targeted convoy. Operating independently with freedom to hunt rather than defend, the group detected and destroyed 2 U-boats from Wolfpack Raubgraf. U-384 and U-631 were both caught during night surface charging operations exactly as Wynn's assessment had predicted. German naval intelligence, the B-Dienst, had achieved considerable success reading British naval codes earlier in the war. However, by early 1943, British communications security had improved significantly. More critically, Germans remained unaware of the extent to which their own Enigma communications were being read systematically. Dönitz and his staff at B-Dienst headquarters continued issuing detailed operational orders via Enigma. They unknowingly provided British intelligence with precise information about U-boat positions and intentions. Fregattenkapitän Ludwig Stummel served as Communications Security Officer at B-Dienst. His report, dated April 2, 1943, documented growing concerns. The precision with which British forces located Wolfpack formations suggested possible compromise of communications security. However, technical analysis indicated Enigma encryption remained secure. The alternative explanation seemed more probable, though equally concerning. British detection technology had achieved capabilities previously considered impossible. The irony of this assessment, revealed through post-war analysis, showed both factors contributed to German defeats. British signals intelligence provided strategic warning of U-boat deployments. Type 291 radar provided tactical detection of individual boats. The combination created comprehensive surveillance systems operating at strategic, operational, and tactical levels simultaneously. Operational research analysts at Western Approaches Command documented the force multiplication effect of combining intelligence with radar technology. A March 1943 analysis noted that hunter-killer groups, positioned by intelligence in areas of anticipated U-boat activity, achieved contact rates 4 times higher than groups conducting random patrols. When those intelligence-positioned groups employed Type 291 radar during night operations, contact rates increased by an additional factor of 3 compared to visual detection alone. The mathematics of destruction had turned completely against the U-boat force. German commanders struggled to comprehend the mounting disaster unfolding beneath their feet. Orders flowing from submarine headquarters in April 1943 revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of the crisis. Operational directives stressed better watchkeeping, more careful periscope observations before surfacing, tighter control over radio transmissions. These traditional responses missed the core problem entirely. No amount of vigilance could defeat technology that spotted periscopes themselves. Surfaced submarines became visible regardless of how carefully crews scanned the horizon. The lookouts could stare into empty darkness while enemy ships already knew their exact position. Senior officers began acknowledging this harsh reality. One tactical assessment from mid-April laid out the hopeless situation with brutal clarity. Standard procedures offered no protection. The enemy found them using methods that made conventional countermeasures worthless. Enhanced watchkeeping meant nothing when detection happened before human eyes could spot threats. Submarine losses climbed steadily through April. May brought even worse casualties. German Naval Command responded with increasingly frantic attempts at solutions. Each new countermeasure revealed how completely the tactical balance had shifted. Traditional submarine warfare advantages had evaporated overnight. The radar technology detecting submarines operated on wavelengths German equipment could barely comprehend. Every attempted solution crashed against this technological wall. Desperation crept into operational orders. Innovation gave way to wild experimentation. Balloon decoys represented the first attempted countermeasure. Submarines would release hydrogen-filled balloons carrying metal reflectors. The theory seemed logical enough. Enemy radar would lock onto false targets. Escorts would waste time investigating empty balloons while submarines escaped into darkness. Reality destroyed this hope within days of deployment. Operational reports from submarines equipped with balloon systems told a consistent story of failure. The balloons created false contacts. Enemy ships ignored them completely. Escort vessels proceeded directly toward actual submarine positions with mechanical precision. One submarine commander filed a detailed report after balloon deployment failed catastrophically. 4 decoy balloons launched during a surface charging operation. An approaching destroyer detected their submarine anyway. The British vessel showed no interest in balloon contacts. Direct approach toward submarine position forced an emergency dive. Post-mission analysis suggested enemy radar could distinguish between decoys and actual submarines. Signal characteristics might differ in ways German technicians didn't understand. Movement patterns could reveal which contacts were real targets. The balloon system provided no protection while consuming precious storage space. Surface profile modifications became the second attempted solution. Operational orders from submarine headquarters instructed boats to surface only partially. Minimum profile above water, while diesel engines ran through experimental ventilation systems. Hastily retrofitted equipment promised reduced detection signatures. This approach failed immediately upon implementation. Partial surfacing proved operationally impossible. Diesel engines required adequate air supply for stable operation. Reduced surface exposure meant inadequate ventilation. Battery charging rates dropped to less than half normal efficiency. One submarine commander documented the tactical failure of partial surfacing procedures. Minimal profile surfacing attempted during pre-dawn hours. Diesel operation became unstable within minutes. Air supply proved insufficient for proper engine function. Battery charging efficiency dropped catastrophically. Despite minimal surface profile, enemy escorts detected their position within 12 minutes. The reduced exposure provided no detection advantage. Charging efficiency suffered severely. The compromise satisfied neither stealth nor operational requirements. Radar warning receivers represented Germany's most sophisticated technological response. The new system promised detection of enemy radar emissions at extended ranges. Earlier warning devices had shown limited effectiveness. The improved version claimed better sensitivity across wider frequency ranges. Technical specifications revealed why even this advanced system failed to provide adequate protection. The warning receiver operated optimally in specific wavelength ranges. Enemy radar used frequencies where German sensitivity remained limited. Detection ranges for the warning system were often shorter than enemy radar detection ranges for surfaced submarines. Warning came too late for effective evasion. By the time German equipment detected enemy radar emissions, attacking ships were usually within weapon range. The system confirmed that attack was imminent rather than providing early alert for escape. Submarine crews received warning that death approached rather than opportunity to avoid detection. One experienced submarine commander described his encounters with the improved warning system during May operations. The detector provided alerts on 3 separate occasions during surface charging attempts. Enemy escorts appeared on the horizon within 2 minutes of each warning. The device confirmed they were being detected, but provided insufficient time for defensive action. Emergency dives became desperate gambles rather than tactical maneuvers. German naval intelligence conducted extensive analysis, attempting to understand enemy technological capabilities. A classified assessment from the Weapons Department acknowledged the extent of technological disadvantage facing submarine operations. Enemy radar demonstrated capabilities far exceeding previous German estimates. Detection of submarine periscopes at ranges beyond 3,000 meters had been confirmed through multiple incident analyses. German detection equipment could not provide adequate warning times. Submarines lacked technical means to avoid detection during necessary surface operations for battery charging. The desperation of Germany's tactical situation became evident in proposals documented during staff meetings. Suggestions included attempting surface charging only during heavy weather conditions. Wave interference might mask radar returns from submarine signatures. Concentrating multiple boats in groups might overwhelm individual escort vessels through numerical superiority. Alternative proposals included abandoning Atlantic operations entirely. Submarine forces could relocate to areas where enemy radar coverage was less comprehensive. Each suggestion was analyzed and found inadequate for practical implementation. Heavy weather reduced radar effectiveness marginally. The same conditions also reduced battery charging efficiency significantly. Operational hazards increased during storm conditions. The tactical advantage gained was minimal compared to operational risks created. Concentration tactics placed multiple submarines at simultaneous risk. When enemy forces located boat groups, losses multiplied dramatically. Single successful enemy attack could destroy several submarines in coordinated operations. Withdrawal from Atlantic operations conceded strategic defeat in Germany's primary campaign against British supply lines. The submarine war had been designed to strangle British imports. Abandoning Atlantic convoy routes meant accepting failure of the entire strategic concept. Preparing this account required extensive research through archived materials. Multiple sources provided documentation of this technological transformation. If you find these historical details compelling, subscription to our channel supports continued research into these crucial wartime developments. The story continues with even more dramatic technological revelations. Before proceeding, let us know your location in the comments. If this historical narrative resonates with you, subscription ensures access to tomorrow's special presentation. Advanced Preparation has uncovered extraordinary details for that episode. April 1943 marked a tactical deterioration beyond anything German submarine planning staff had considered remotely possible. Advanced radar technology, combined with improved escort tactics, created an operational environment where fundamental submarine requirements became death sentences. The need to surface for battery recharging transformed from routine procedure into suicidal exposure. Senior operational staff compiled comprehensive assessments that laid bare the magnitude of the crisis. Submarines were being detected during night surface operations at ranges and under conditions that existing technology could not explain. Standard evasive procedures provided no warning before attacks commenced. Careful periscope reconnaissance offered no protection. Radar detection equipment remained inadequate. Acoustic listening provided no early warning. Commanders reported enemy escorts appearing from beyond visual range with precise bearing information to submarine positions. Experienced commanders with multiple successful patrol records were dying at rates that threatened complete destruction of submarine operations within months. The statistics supporting this grim assessment painted a picture of accelerating catastrophe. March casualties had reached 28 boats lost. April would claim 16 more submarines. But the raw numbers told only part of the devastating story. The pattern of losses revealed something far more troubling than simple increased casualty rates. Experienced commanders with multiple successful patrols were being killed at identical rates to inexperienced crews. Submarines following proper tactical doctrine were being destroyed as readily as those making procedural errors. The traditional learning curve that allowed survivors to refine tactics and transfer knowledge to new crews had been completely broken. Senior tactical analysts documented specific case studies that revealed the impossibility of the tactical situation facing submarine operations. Highly experienced commanders with 14 successful patrol records were being lost during routine operations. Submarines commanded by decorated veterans, men who had survived years of Atlantic combat, were being sunk during charging procedures they had completed successfully hundreds of times previously. The psychological impact on surviving crews manifested in ways that threatened operational effectiveness throughout the submarine service. Medical officers at submarine bases reported dramatic increases in combat fatigue cases. Nervous disorders multiplied among returning crews. Symptoms that would later be recognized as post-traumatic stress became epidemic. Crews returning from patrol described constant tension during surface charging operations. The knowledge that every minute spent surfaced might be their last created unbearable psychological pressure. No warning preceded enemy escort appearances from darkness beyond visual range. One of Germany's most successful submarine commanders described the transformed reality in his patrol report from April operations. Night surface charging periods had become ordeals that tested crew endurance beyond reasonable limits. Maximum security procedures were implemented before every surfacing evolution. Hydrophone sweeps preceded surface operations. Periscope reconnaissance scanned entire horizons. Radar detector monitoring continued throughout surface periods. Yet these comprehensive measures provided no reliable protection against enemy detection capabilities. Enemy escorts could detect submarines through methods that German countermeasures could not defeat. British forces remained invisible, while submarine positions became completely exposed. Crew understanding of this tactical impossibility affected morale and operational efficiency throughout the submarine service. Attempts to develop effective countermeasures revealed the complete depth of German technological disadvantage. Radar detection equipment introduced earlier in the war could detect some enemy radar emissions, but provided inadequate warning times for effective evasion. By the time detection equipment alerted surfaced submarines to enemy radar emissions, British escort vessels were typically already within attack range of submarine positions. Limited sensitivity and directional ambiguity meant commanders often couldn't determine threat bearing or accurate range estimates. German submarine command faced an impossible strategic choice documented in war diary entries from late April. Withdrawing submarines from North Atlantic operations would concede defeat in the campaign that had nearly succeeded in strangling British supply lines. Continuing operations at current loss rates would completely destroy submarine forces within months. Technological advantages provided by enemy radar had created tactical situations with no viable German countermeasures. The technological superiority achieved by British forces negated traditional submarine tactical advantages completely. War diary entries acknowledged this reality with unusual candor for official military documentation. The enemy had achieved technical superiority and detection capabilities that negated German tactical advantages. Submarines must surface to charge batteries for continued operations. Enemy forces could detect surfacing through methods that German technology could not counter. Until effective countermeasures were developed, submarine operations meant sending crews to certain death. Existing technology provided no protection against enemy detection capabilities. May 1943 marked formal acknowledgement of defeat in the Central Atlantic Campaign. The month would witness 41 submarines lost, representing catastrophic casualty rates of nearly one boat destroyed for every merchant vessel sunk. This exchange ratio made continued operations strategically meaningless. The order issued on May 24th effectively conceded North Atlantic control to Allied forces. The message transmitted to all operational submarines represented one of World War II's most significant strategic retreats. All boats operating in North Atlantic regions west of 40 degrees were directed to withdraw immediately to southwestern areas near the Azores. Further operations in North Atlantic convoy routes were suspended indefinitely pending development of improved detection countermeasures and defensive equipment. No timeline was provided for resumption of offensive operations. Mathematical reality had forced this decision regardless of tactical innovation or crew courage. During May's first 3 weeks, Submarine Command recorded specific incidents that made continued operations completely indefensible from any strategic perspective. 4 submarines from one wolf pack were destroyed in a single night by escort groups that located each boat during surface charging periods. 3 submarines from another wolf pack were sunk within 6 hours, all during night surface operations when detection should have been most difficult. One experienced Atlantic commander transmitted his final patrol report before withdrawing under direct orders. 12 days of operations had forced 17 emergency crash dives during attempted surface charging. Enemy escorts located submarine positions on 14 occasions before surfacing evolution could be completed. No radar emissions were detected prior to these attacks. German warning equipment provided alerts on only 3 occasions, none with sufficient advance time to avoid detection. Battery conditions were critical. Insufficient charge remained to reach safe operating areas while remaining submerged. Withdrawal proceeded on the surface during daylight hours, gambling on air cover protection. Night surface operations had become completely suicidal for any submarine attempting Atlantic operations. Strategic implications extended far beyond immediate tactical defeats at sea. Submarine campaigns had represented Germany's primary method of attacking British war-making capacity without requiring air superiority or ground force advantages. Withdrawal from North Atlantic convoy routes meant British supply lines from America would flow with acceptable losses. Materials accumulating in Britain for eventual European invasion operations would arrive without the catastrophic shipping destruction Germany required to prevent Allied offensive capability development. The submarines had been the last hope for preventing Allied material superiority from reaching overwhelming levels. Post-war analysis by naval historians from both German and Allied perspectives identified May 1943 as the decisive turning point in Atlantic campaign outcomes. German naval leadership acknowledged this assessment in post-war memoirs and documentation. Enemy superior detection technology, particularly the ability to locate submarines during night surface charging operations, had created tactical conditions that made continued operations impossible. The fundamental problem could not be solved through tactical innovation. Submarines required surface time for battery recharging. Enemy forces could detect surface operations from ranges that prevented evasion or effective counterattack. British naval assessments from June explicitly credited advanced radar technology as the decisive technological advantage in Atlantic operations. Reports to the War Cabinet stated that radar capable of detecting submarine periscopes and surfaced submarines at night had fundamentally altered tactical balance throughout the Atlantic theater. U-boats that required surfacing for battery charging could now be located and attacked during their most vulnerable operational periods. This detection capability, combined with increased escort strength and improved tactical coordination, had rendered mid-Atlantic areas completely untenable for submarine operations. Human costs of this technological defeat were documented in comprehensive casualty records. Of approximately 1,200 submarines commissioned during the entire war, nearly 800 would be lost, representing loss rates exceeding 65% of all commissioned vessels. Approximately 40,000 men served in submarine operations during the war. Roughly 30,000 died in submarine service, creating the highest casualty rate of any German military service throughout the war. May 1943, withdrawal came too late to prevent destruction of submarine forces, but acknowledged what tactical reports had demonstrated clearly. Advanced radar had broken submarines' fundamental advantage of invisibility during surface operations. Technological revolution represented by this radar development would reshape naval warfare far beyond immediate tactical victories achieved in 1943. Principles demonstrated through radar detection of objects smaller than previously considered possible would influence naval development for decades. Established doctrines emerging from this technological shift remain relevant in modern submarine warfare applications. Final accounting of technology's impact came through post-war analysis conducted by naval research divisions from both Allied and German perspectives. British operational research documented that convoy losses dropped from 15 to 20% in early 1943 to less than 2% by August 1943. Radar-equipped escorts accounted for 43% of submarine kills during this period, despite representing only 28% of total escort vessels. Statistical advantages confirmed radar's decisive contribution to tactical success throughout the Atlantic campaign. German post-war technical assessments, compiled by surviving submarine commanders and technical staff for Allied intelligence services, acknowledged complete technological defeat. Comprehensive analysis stated that Allied development of advanced radar had created detection capabilities against which German forces possessed no effective countermeasures. Fundamental requirements of submarine operations, surfacing for battery recharging, had become fatal vulnerabilities once enemy forces could detect periscopes and surfaced boats during night operations. Tactical doctrine developed over years of successful operations had become obsolete within months of technological deployment. Human dimensions of technological shifts were documented through survivor testimonies collected during decades following the war. Veteran reunions provided forums for discussion of psychological impacts from facing technologically superior enemy forces. Commanders spoke publicly about psychological effects of hunting by undetectable technology. Surface charging periods became countdowns to possible death. The bravest men showed rational fear during night surface operations, not cowardice, but recognition that they remained visible to enemies who stayed invisible. Strategic implications extended into Cold War submarine development programs. American and Soviet naval architects studied Atlantic submarine campaigns when designing nuclear submarines that eliminated battery charging vulnerabilities. Ability to remain submerged indefinitely removed tactical weaknesses that radar had exploited effectively. Modern submarine doctrine references lessons from 1943 when teaching principles about technological advantages, negating traditional tactical approaches. Recognition that superior technology can overwhelm established military practices remains fundamental to contemporary naval strategy development. Preserved records at German military archives and British National Archives contain complete documentation of this technological transformation. Submarine war diaries, patrol reports, and tactical assessments provide German operational perspectives. British Admiralty records, escort group patrol reports, and radar operational logs document Allied viewpoints comprehensively. Together, these archival materials reveal how single technological advancement, the magnetron enabling advanced radar detection, shifted the entire balance of Atlantic warfare. Documentation demonstrates the complete transformation from German tactical supremacy to Allied technological dominance. Annual Battle of Atlantic commemorations include specific recognition of radar technicians and operators whose technological work proved as decisive as escort crew combat actions. Recent anniversary ceremonies featured surviving radar operators describing their wartime experiences with detection technology. Veterans described seeing submarine contacts on radar screens, tiny signatures that represented enemy periscopes. Ship captains trusted radar operator reports even when detection seemed impossible for such small targets. Young technicians operated technology that changed warfare outcomes without fully understanding historical significance at the time. Transformation was complete from German tactical supremacy based on submarine invisibility in darkness to Allied technological dominance that eliminated hiding capabilities entirely. Radar pulses bouncing off periscopes and surfaced submarines didn't just detect enemy vessels. They detected the future direction of naval warfare development. Technology and physics would increasingly determine victory regardless of individual courage or tactical skill levels. Advanced radar proved fundamental truths about 20th century warfare. In competition between concealment and detection, technological innovation favors forces with superior industrial and scientific capacity for developing, producing, and deploying new systems faster than opponents can develop effective countermeasures. Two outstanding stories await your attention right on your screen. If this historical account captured your interest, those episodes will provide equally compelling content. Click to explore them immediately. Subscribe and activate notification alerts to ensure you receive all future uploads from our channel.